Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Uh, Venerable Sangha, nuns and the laity. So today we have to resume our discussion on the 14th method. Now, why we are starting the 14th method? Of course, now because when we are discussing in the last day, when we discussed the method number 8, we were explaining that the states of inquiries are in the 8th method and the 14th method were same, right? And also the Yedhamma, the answer for the Yedhamma were the same, right? Those states were the same. Only the difference was in the classification. In the 8th method, it was on the association and association. And in the 14th method, it was the classification and unclassification. So that was the difference between those two methods. So what I'm going to do today is to quickly go through these go through these groups for the 14th method also.
好，那么今天呢，我们将首先来回顾一下在上一节课我们学习的第8法的内容。那不知大家还是否记得我们在上一节课在讲解第8法的时候有提到，这里的探究法的内容呢，在表格之中是涉及到第8法和第14法的内容。为什么呢？因为这些探究法的内容是一致的。那它们的相应的情况呢也是一致的，只是在14法之中呢，对于这些的耶达玛的内容呢，进一步的会去探讨它们是相似和不相似的情况。那今天的话呢，我们就首先来快速的做一些将继续的去进行学习。
So
Yes, Bana.
if you look at the Pali in the 14th method, in the method number 14, it's similar, very much similar to the method number 8. Okay, I'll go through this. The first one, Rupa Khandena Yedhamma Vipayutta Te Dhamma Katihi Khandehi Katihayatanehi Katihi Dhatuhi Sanghita Te Dhamma Chatuhi Khandehi Dihayatanehi Attahi Dhatuhi Sanghita Katihi Asanghita Ekena Khandena Dasahayatanehi Dasahi Dhatuhi Asanghita. Right, so that's the Pali here. So it starts with Rupa Khandena. We can recall the method number 7. The Pali is the same, right? It's the first state of inquiry is Rupa Khandena. And this part also it's the same. Yedhamma Vipayutta is also same. And because of that, Yedhamma Vipayutta means the states which are disassociated, right? So Yedhamma is these states. So it's same, right? So that's why we find it the same in both methods. And it says te dhamma katihi khandehi katihayatanehi katihi dhatuhi sanghita. So here is where we find the difference, right? So in the previous method number 8, we found this as te dhamma katihi khandehi katihayatanehi katihi dhatuhi. Here the Pali was sampayutta. I'm sorry, it was vipayutta, right? No, it was
Yes,
sampayutta.
Vipayutta.
No,
Vipayutta
it's
first.
sampayutta, right?
Vipayutta in 8th method.
No, it was sampayutta.
And in its method, it's a Vipayuta first.
First Vipayuttena Sampayutta, is it? Yeah, first it was Vipayutta, yes. You are correct also. It's correct. What I'm talking is about the second one. Yeah, it's Vipayuttena Sampayutta. Right, so it was Vipayuttena Sampayutta. So here it was in the method number 7. With method number 8, it was Vipayutta here. Right, but that was in the method number 8. Right, for in this case, it was Sanghita. Right, here it is Sanghita. So the answer is given as Te Dhamma Chatuhi Kandehi Dvihayatanehi Atahi Dhatuhi Sanghita. And it says Katihi Asanghita Ekena Kandena Dasayatane Dasai Dhatuhi Asanghita. Right. So here is the difference, right? In the 14th method, we find Sanghita and also we find the Asanghita. So that's the difference here. Yes.
那在此对第八法而言呢，它是以不相应而相应。那在此我们看到，比如说在第14法之中的 Rupa Kandena Yedama Vipayuta，这里呢一开始的 Yedama 都是以 Vipayuta 来去判断，就是和探究法是不相应的，而得到一开始的 Yedama。但是之后在第八法之中呢，根据这个 Yedama 进一步的去探讨与 Yedama 相应的运处界是哪些，而在此呢，则是将第八法之中的相应，改为在此的三嘎黑达相摄，那就是对于耶达玛呢，它相摄于哪些的运处界，或者呢，它可以被归纳于哪些的运处界，那这呢是两者的差异。
Right. So we'll straight away refer the in this column, classified and unclassified. Right. Find it. Find this part, right? Classified and unclassified. This part, Sanghita and Asanghita. So for the matter aggregate, it is Vipayutta. It is disassociated with 4 mental aggregates. So they are classified in 4 aggregates, 2 bases, and 8 elements, right? Straightforward, right? 4 mental aggregates, it's the 4 mental aggregates here. And 2 bases are the Manayatana and Dhammayatana. For the 8 elements, it is 7 consciousness elements, and also the ideation element, the Dhammayatana. And here also it's straightforward. It is unclassified. The 4 mental aggregates are unclassified in 1 aggregate, the Rupakanda, and the 10 elements, 10 bases and 10 elements, right? Which are the gross elements and the gross bases.
那在第八法之中，比如说对于色蕴与它，以它的不相应而相应的内容呢，是没有的。这个呢，我们在之前已经看到。但是在第14法之中得出它的与色蕴不相应的内容之后呢，要对于这里不相应的那些法呢去进行归纳。那对于色蕴不相应的是四明蕴，四明蕴可以被归纳在哪些的蕴处界呢？那四明蕴的话，它可以被归于4种的蕴，就是四明蕴；2种的处，就是法处、意处； 8种的戒，就是法界和其实戒。那不可以被归纳于哪些的运处戒呢？那换言之呢，也就是已得的运处戒的内容呢，用整体的内容呢去除，它们就可以得到。那所以呢，因为相应于4种的运、2种的处、8种的戒，所以不会被归纳于1种的处、1种的1种的运、10种的处和10种的戒。
So we'll move to the next state of inquiry, which is feeling aggregate. That is the Vedana Khandena. So Vedana Khandena ye Dhamma Vipayutta means the Dhammas which are disassociated with the Vedana Khanda, feeling aggregate. We find it in this column, material and Nibbana, 28 matter and the Nibbana. So those Dhammas are classified. You find a star here, right? You find an asterisk here, right? Small star, call it, right? So this asterisk indicates, okay, look at this question here in the Pali, right? So, okay, this is the state of inquiry, Vedana Khandena. So it says, Te Dhamma, we know this Pali already, we have seen this, right? Asankatang Khandato Tapetva, Ekena Khandena, Dasayatani Ekadasai Dhatuhi Sangahita. So we know the meaning of Asankatang Khandato Tapetva. So for this Te Dhamma or Ye Dhamma, whatever it is, so we have the 28 matter, and also we have the Nibbana here, right? So then because of Nibbana, it does not, it is not classified in the classification of the aggregates, and because of that reason, it is not included. It is given as Asankatang Khandato Tapetva, excluding the Asankata Khanda, the Nibbana, excluding that. The other Dhammas, which are the 28 matter, they are classified in one aggregate, which is the matter aggregate. Then Ekadasahayatanihi, 10 aggregate, which is the 10 gross bases, right? 10 gross bases, and also have the Ekadasahayatanihi, right? Ekadasahayatanihi, again, it's the 10 gross bases, and also the ideation base, right? So if you move to the elements, it's also Ekadasahayatani, 11, right? Yeah, also it's 11. Ten gross bases, and also the ideation base, right? And then let's have the other question on the unclassification. It says Katihi Asangahita, Chatuhi Khandehi Ekenayatanehi Satai Dhatuhi Asangahita. So it says Chatuhi Khandehi is the 4 mental aggregates, right? Straightforward. 4 mental aggregates, and Ekenayatane, one base, right? That is the mind base, right? Manayatana. And Sattahi Dhatuhi Asangahita. Sattahi means it's this unclassified in 7 bases, which are the 7 mind elements, right? Yes.
接下来的话，在经文的第457段里面，以受孕为首的这些探究法，那对于受孕而言，与它不相应的法是哪些呢？就是色法和涅槃。那对于色法和涅槃有哪些法是，它们呢是可以被归纳于哪些的运处界呢？那在此呢，我们看到经文之中提到的是 Te Dhamma 之后呢，加了一些的描述，阿桑嘎当 看达都达达贝德瓦。阿桑嘎当这里呢，指代的就是涅槃因为涅槃呢，它并非是刑法。看达都达贝德瓦就是呢，呃，在涅槃剩下之后的那些的运，也就是这些呢，色法和涅槃呢，要将涅槃去除之后而去探讨，就是剩下的这一种的色法。再去探讨它们可以归属于哪些的运呢？它可以属于一种的运，就是色运。那司法和涅槃可以属于哪些的处呢？可以归属于11种的处，就是10种的粗色处和法处。11种的戒，同样的10种的粗色戒和法戒。那司法和涅槃不可以被归纳在哪些的运处间呢？它不可以被归纳在4种的明运，还有呢1种的益处和7种的十戒。
Okay. So the next state of inquiry, which is the eye consciousness element, that is Chakku Vijnana Dhatuya. So Yedama Vipayutta, the states which are disassociated with the eye consciousness element, is the remaining 6 consciousness elements and the mental factors, right? So this we know already. And now we have to get the dhammas which are unclassified here, right? So here we find, I'm sorry, we have the 28 matter and nibbana also here. And then classified, for the classification, it is these dhammas are classified in 5 aggregates, right? 5 aggregates, but again we see the asterisks here, right? So what does it indicate? This one, this indicate the asankatang khandato tapetva, right? Excluding the nibbana to be excluded from the classification of the aggregates, right? So this we have the matter here, so we have the matter aggregate and this remaining 6 consciousness elements and also the mental factors. They belong to the 4 mental aggregates. So that's why we get the 5 included here, the 5 aggregates here. And we have 12 here, right? For in terms of the bases, we have 12 here. So all the 12 bases are included here, right? But when it comes to the elements, we see only 70, right? So why only 17? Because the state of inquiry itself is the eye consciousness element, right? Eye consciousness element. So from the 18 elements, the eye consciousness element is removed here from this one, right? So that's how we get the answer as 17 here. And moving to the unclassification, it's very straightforward, right? We get 0, 0, right? Which means it is not classified in, it is unclassified. These dhammas, these state of inquiries are unclassified in aggregates and bases. And also it's unclassified in the yeah, so can you please continue?
Yes, Monday.
Do I
好，
need to
接下
write
来
it again?
No need, Monday. 好，接下来的话呢是下一种类型的探究法，以眼识界为代表。眼识界呢，它所针对的究竟法呢，就是眼识这样的一种明法。那哪些法是与眼识不相应的呢？即是不可能与眼识同时存在的 7十界里面，除了眼识之外，剩下的6种的识界及其相应心所法。再有呢是色法和涅槃，也与眼识界是不相应的。对于上述诸法，它们可以被归纳在哪些的蕴处界呢？它们可以被首先归纳在5种的蕴、12种的处和17种的界之中。5种的蕴呢，就是色受想行识5种蕴都可以存在，12种的处呢也都可以。但是呢，在界里面呢，只有17种的界。为什么呢？因为有1种的界不被归纳在此，就是眼识界本身。
Okay, so just to add one more thing to the explanation here, we find 0 and 0 for aggregates and bases when it comes to the unclassification. So if you look at the Pali, we have to see how it is given, right? So this is the Chakku Viññāna Dhātuya, which we discussed. The state of inquiry, which we discussed, right? Chakku Viññāna Dhātuya. So in the unclassification part, right, it starts from here, the question, Kati Asangahita, with how many aggregates, with how many bases, with how many elements are those states are disassociated with. Then we find this Pali here as Na kehichi kandehi, Na kehichi ayatanehi, ekaya dhatuya asangahita. Right, so Na kehichi kandehi means it is not disassociated with any aggregate, right? So that's what Sayadaw has indicated as 0 in the table, right? And then Na kehichi ayatanehi means it is not disassociated with any base. Ekaya dhatuya asangahita, we know it's only one. It is disassociated, I'm sorry, not disassociated, it is classified, right? It's classified with, it is not classified in with any aggregate, not classified with any base, unclassified with one element, right? Yes.
那在此上述得到的这些的法呢，就是6种的识界、相应心所、色法、涅槃，它们不可以被归纳在哪些的内容之中呢？在表格之中，我们看到是不可以归纳在0种的蕴、0种的处和1种的界。那这里的0个蕴、0个处在经文之中是如何表述的呢？在经文之中给予的答案呢是 na geheji gandehe。就是没有任何的蕴，那给黑基阿呀达内黑，没有任何的处，3个黑大，那他们呢不会归纳在任何的蕴、任何的处呢，但是呢他们不会被归纳在1种的界，A给呀大度呀就是眼识界。
Right. For the rest, the other groups, I'm not going to go into detail and explain like that. So what y'all have to do is to refer this table and go through them, right? It's very straightforward because when you know this, the answer for Yedhamma, which is given in this in these 2 columns, then the classification and unclassification is straightforward, right? Because it comes from the method number 1. So I'm not going to go through it. So please refer this table and study this on your own. Also with referring to the Pali for all the other dhammas which belongs to these groups, right? Because last week we discussed the states of inquiries which belongs to each of these groups. So what y'all have to do is to use this table and refer to those groups and study it on your own, right? I'm not going to go into detail for that.
好，接下来呢，剩下的这些探究法呢，我们就不会再一一的去解释。那需要大家去做的呢，就是在课后将这里面所提及的这些的探究法的内容，按照这里所解释的方式，第8法和第11法、第14法的方式呢，去尝试进行练习。
Okay, so having said that, to do it, right, to refer this table and study, I need to convey a very important message on Dhamma. So we see this when it comes to, especially in the Abhidhamma, we find this special kind of, I mean, we see when there is a particular pattern when we are learning Abhidhamma, the teacher or whatever the method which is explained, it will say, okay, now what you have to do is to follow this method and understand it fully. So but I mean, when the teacher give this kind of an advice, I have seen two types of students. Number one is the type of students who will just, they feel that they are in the comfort zone because they already have the table and all the details. So they think that we don't need to go through it, right? Go through it because it's easy and the method is pretty much the same. Only the subtle differences apply. The number type 2, the type 2 students are the ones who follow it very with attention and care, even though it's the same. It's they follow it, they learn it again and again, right? Even it's the same thing, you learn it and again. So I prefer the students in this class to be the type number 2, because we need to change our kind of a conception on the learning when it comes to Dhamma. So if you are learning some kind of a worldly education, maybe we are learning science, maybe mathematics, or whatever the field, right? Maybe it's finance. If you find a similar kind of a method, then with the subtle differences, I mean, you can say that you understood the thing correctly, and you don't need to do many things to understand it, to be a master on that. But when it comes to Dhamma, it's different, because in Dhamma we see the repetition, lot of repetitions, lot of things repeated in many ways, right? So why we have to think why Lord Buddha explained the same thing in many ways, and why he explained maybe the things with subtle differences in many ways. So the reason, it's especially to improve our panya, right? Even though you do it, this one thing, like say for example, if you reflect on one set of dhammas, if you reflect on one line in Dhamma, when you reflect it the second time, you understand it more thoroughly. So for, like say for example, if you now, I know that there are bhikkhus and nuns and also lay people who are into meditation. So ultimately what we have to do in meditation, right, especially in the vipassana, what we have to do, like to attain nibbana, we have to totally eradicate the attachment or the craving on the 5 aggregates. So in that process, all the practice, all the subject of the vipassana, it's the 5 aggregates, right? So you have to do the same thing, same exercise many times, 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, million times, maybe billions of times, right? Until you perfect it, right? So then your parami, right? In the English word for parami is perfection, right? So when you perfect it, then you can totally eradicate all the defilements, the tanha, the lobha, which you have on the 5 aggregates. So it's the same thing what we have to do on these kind of dhammas, right? So not to be, so my message is not to be be lazy and to be in the comfort zone, that we understood this thing, but to go through this thing again and again until you complete that exercise, right? So it happens in many ways. So I know when I was teaching when the class to some of my students in Sri Lanka, the bhikkhus, so even though they are very skillful in these dhammas, they can analyze them very well, very fast, and they had all these skills. But I know them, some of them personally. So they did like say one bhikkhu told me that after the evening chanting, he recited all these. When he complete one method, then he would recite it, everything, even though he is very skillful. So that kind of things we need to do to build our character to attain Nibbana, right? So my message is to, Even though this is easy, this have subtle differences. Go through it thoroughly. Yes.
Okay, quite long today.
Yes.
好，那么尊者刚刚呢，跟大家做了一些的教诫。那首先呢，就是在我们学习戒论的过程之中，每一次我们在学完一种方法之后呢，悉达多总是会要求和建议大家要把剩下的这些的究竟探究法的内容呢，自行的做一些的练习。作为老师呢，尊者他说他遇到两种类型的学生。第一种类型的学生呢，是他们觉得这些的方法已经掌握了，而且呢，这些的探究法呢，对他们而言相对简单，所以呢，他们就选择直接的略过了，不会去做细致的练习。第二种类型呢，则是他们即便已经了解了，但是呢，他们仍然会细致的挨个的呢去分析每一种的探究法。那老师的要求呢，是我们如果说能够按照第二种的方式去学习呢，是更加有利益的。为什么呢？那即便是佛陀在教导阿毗达摩的时候呢，也是透过这种非常繁琐的方式呢，来去进行讲解。在讲解到在教导这些法义的时候，对于学习者而言，每当去醒察观察这些究竟法的时候呢，他的智慧都会因此而获得提升。那些的禅修者，尤其是有一些的出家众，他们呢在禅修的过程之中，对于像各种的运处界等等，在为了体证涅槃而去实践维巴萨那的过程之中，他们需要不断的去进行观察，可能要数以千遍、万遍、10万遍、百万遍、亿万遍等等。那只有这样的方式呢，他们的智慧呢才能够逐渐的开显，那他们的巴拉密呢才能够更加的成熟。呃，那所以呢，西雅多的老师的这个建议呢，就是让大家能够更好的、更仔细的去，哪怕说很繁琐，也能够认真的去完成这里的练习。那像尊者他的一些的斯里兰卡的学生呢，他们在学习这部分的内容的时候呢，他们有些的学生就会在每一天上完晚课之后呢，哪怕他们已经比较熟练了，他们呢仍然会在上完晚课之后再一次的去诵读这些已经学习过的内容。在诵读的过程之中呢，也去对于这些内容呢进行思维。那像这样的话呢，我们的学习的我们的学习呢才能够更加的扎实，才能够给我们带来更多的利益，可以吧？呢？
Okay. So now we'll move into the method number 9, right? So 8 is done, 14 is done, and we have to move into the method number 9, right? So method number 9, we'll go through this Pali first. We'll go through this Pali and we'll analyze the question and the answer. So it says, Vedana Khandena Yedhamma Sampayutta Tehi Dhammehi Yedhamma Sampayutta Te Dhamma Katihi Khandehi Katihayatanehi Katihi Dhatuhi Sampayutta Te Dhamma Tihi Khandehi Ekena Ayatanena Sattahi Dhatuhi Sampayutta Ekena Ayatanena Ekaya Dhatuya Kehichi Sampayutta. So this question, it consists of 3 parts, right? Part 1, 2, and 3, and then we have the answer in this side. Right, so in this column we have the state of inquiry, which is says with feeling aggregate, right? Yedhamma Sampayutta. So these states are associated with feeling aggregate, Yedhamma Sampayutta. So what we do here is to derive these states which are associated with the state of inquiry, and this is called the first Yedhamma, right? In here also, in this method also, we have 2 Yedhammas, right? Yedhamma Sampayutta. So first we have to derive that part, And the second part of the question, it says, Tehi Dhammehi Ye Dhamma Sampayutta. So whatever the answer you got for the Ye Dhamma Sampayutta, right? So that becomes the subject for the second part of the second phrase of the question. So by those states, Ye Dhamma Sampayutta, Dhammas which are associated. So this becomes the subject, and from those states, we derive the Ye Dhamma Sampayutta here, right? So that is the answer for the second Ye Dhamma, right? Second Ye Dhamma, right? So those states, deriving these states which are associated with the first those states. So Ye Dhamma Sampayutta. And then we move to the third part of the question, which is the question on the association, right? So Te Dhamma, those states, this one is straightforward. Kati Khandehi, Kati Hayatani, Kati Dhātuhi Sampayutta. How many aggregates, how many bases, and how many elements are those states associated with, right? You're asking this question with how many aggregates, how many bases, and with how many elements are those states associated with, right? And finally we have this answer here. Te Dhamma, those states. Tehi Kandi, associated with 3 aggregates. Sattahi Dhātuhi with 1 base. Oh, sorry, Ekena Ayatanena with 1 base. And Sattahi Dhātuhi and 7 elements. Then it says Ekena Ayatanena Ekaya Dhātuya Keji Sampayutta. So it's partially associated with 1 base and 1 elements. So we'll go through into details in the method when you are learning. So first we'll break down this question and understand it on the structure of the question here. Yes.
好，我们接下来要看的呢是第9法的内容。好，那第9法呢，它的结构是怎样？我们先来看一下。那举例而言，以维达纳坎达作为探究法为例，那以维达纳坎德那耶达玛三巴尤达。首先呢，在第一个部分之中，我们看到，在提出探究法是受孕之后呢，接下来要去找到的是与受孕相应的那些法是什么。那在找到与受孕相应的那些法之后呢，接下来 dehi damehi ye dhamma samba yuda， 这里的第二个的部分里面的 dehi damehi 的内容呢，它应当是包含有探究法本身和探究法相应的那些法的内容在一起。那对于在此的 dehi damehi 的内容得到以后，进一步的去发问 samba yuda， 那哪些法和这里的 dehi damehi 是属于相应的呢？于是呢，我们就得到了这第二个所谓的相应的耶达玛。那在找到这里的耶达玛之后呢，它将会作为第3个部分里面的 d 达玛的内容。对于这里的 d 达玛进一步的去发问，那有哪些的法可以相应于这里的 d 达玛？比如说对于受孕而言，受孕与它相应的法呢，就是除了受孕以外，其他的所有的民法。那 dehi damehi 呢，就是包含有一切的民法，一切的四民运。那与四民运相应的法呢，只有色法和涅槃。那接下来这里的色法和涅槃呢，就是 dehi dhamma。接下来的最后的问题呢，就是对于色法和涅槃而言，有哪些法是与它相应的？结果我们得到的答案呢是4种的名运、1种的益处和7种的实界，以及部分的法界。
Right. There was a typo here. There was a typo here which I have typing error here. I have written here as disassociated. It should be associated. Anyway, I'll send the revised document after the class. Okay. So now we move into the table, right? So this is the table from the Mulapattana Sadhu's book translation, and this is also, I did not try to write my own table here because it's the same structure with Sayadaw, right? For some methods, I prepared my own table because I was following the way which was explained in the commentary. But for some methods in the Dhātukatha, the method which is explained by in the Burmese tradition and the commentary is the same, right? So no need to prepare new tables for those methods. So yes, sir.
这里我们将会使用的表格呢，是来自于穆拉巴塔那西亚多书中的表格。尊者呢也有另外的其他的表格，以及呢还有其他的结合译著的，还有缅甸传统的这些的解释的方法。这里的话，我们主要就是结合穆拉巴塔那西亚多的书，我们来学习一下第九法的内容。
Right. So this table also is applicable for two methods, right? For method number right? For method number 9 and also method number 14. I'm sorry, method number 12. Right. So this part is for method number 9, and this part is applicable for method number 12, right? So we are only discussing which is applicable for method number 9. So we'll move to the group number 1. So Vedana Khandena, right? Vedana Khandena Yedhamma Sampayutta, associated with these states, right? So whatever the dhammas which are associated with the Vedana Khanda is the 89 consciousness, 52 mental factors, excluding feeling, right? So ideally it should be 51 mental factors, right? Which means excluding the feeling. Right? So then in the question it says Te Dhamma, the question it says Tehi Dhammehi Ye Dhamma Sampayutta, which means with those states, right? So with the state of inquiry, feeling aggregate. So dhammas which are associated is the remaining mental aggregates, right? 89 consciousness, 52 mental factors, excluding the feeling. So this becomes this Yedhamma, it becomes the subject of the second phrase, second part of the question, right? So we know when the dhammas, these 89 consciousness, mental factors, so whatever the dhammas which are associated is the feeling aggregate itself, right? The state of inquiry itself. So that's why for the second, these states, Sayadaw has given the names as states, which means the state of inquiry itself. Right? The state of inquiry itself becomes the second Yedhamma, second these states. Right? And then, so those dhammas, they are associated with the remaining mental aggregates. Right? So it's the feeling aggregate, which is the state of inquiry here. So those dhammas are associated with the remaining mental aggregates here. So you find the answer as 3 here, which is Sanya Khanda, Sankhara Khanda, and Vijnana Khanda. And then for the basis, it's the mind base, which is the answer here. And also the for the elements, the 7 consciousness elements. Right? So 7 consciousness element. Then it's given as the partial association, right? The partial association, for the partial association, it is applicable for the 51 mental factors, excluding the feeling mental factor, right? Yes.
Sorry, Bande. So here, for the second, for the Dehi Dhamehi here, it is Vidana Khanda.
Tehi Dhammehi is this part. Ye Dhamma becomes Tehi Dhammehi, and the second Ye Dhamma becomes the Vedana Khanda itself.
For example, the
Did you get?
first Dehi Dhamehi Yedama Sambayuda. So the first Dehi Dhamehi is
We have the feeling aggregate here, right? So this is the first Ye Dhamma. Okay. And
yes.
this part becomes the Ye Dhamma becomes Tehi Dhammehi. Right? So
Yes.
when you say Tehi Dhammehi Ye Dhamma Sampayutta, Tehi Dhammehi Ye Dhamma Sampayutta, it becomes have the feeling aggregate itself. So that's why Sayadaw has given here as states.
So Dehi Dhamehi Yedama Sambayuda will come back to the Sarupa Dhamma itself.
Itself, yes, for the state of Enkar itself.
Because Bande, I checked your another files that in the chart you mentioned it is Luba and Ibana.
Oh no! Oh, please ignore that chart, right? I was yes. Please ignore that chart, right? It's incorrect. Yeah,
Okay,
not
okay.
matter any bar, right? I mean, I started preparing this chart, then I realized I don't need to do that because it's the same, pretty much the same chart that the Sayadaw has prepared. So I forgot to remove it, and I send it to you, send it to all the class, but it should be removed, right?
Okay, so anyway, for here, Dehi Dhamehi, it will come back to the Sarupa Dhamma itself.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, the second Ye Dhamma becomes the Sarupatta itself, right?
Yeah, the second Dhamma come back to itself. Okay, Bande.
Yeah.
好，那这里的话，跟大家澄清一下，刚刚我们所提到的，Dehi Dhamehi 的第一个 Dehi Dhamehi 的内容呢，它就是第一个耶达玛的内容，它并不是，探究法和与它相应的法一起。那 Dehi Dhamehi 呢，它就是，第一个的耶达玛。比如说，对于受孕而言呢，这里的 Dehi Dhamehi 的内容呢，就应当是与受孕相应的89种心和51种心所。因此呢，与它们相应的法呢是哪些呢？那就回归到了探究法本身啊、那它与它相应的法呢，就只是受孕。所以在这里呢，我们就看到在表格之中呢，就有解释到，那在这里的第二个的耶达玛呢，它就回归到了探究法本身的内容。那于是呢，对于这里的呃得到的第二个耶达玛呢，就是探究法本身。那探究法本身呢，就是受孕。那问题的话呢，这一达玛 就是对于受孕而言，它有哪些的运处界是与它相应的。那最终呢，如果是这样子去发问呢，我们得知与受孕相应的法呢，有3种的运，就是其他的3名运；一种的处就是一处；7种的界呢，就是7世界。
Okay. We'll move into the second state of inquiry, which is Vijnana Khandena, consciousness aggregate. So the first Yedhamma will be the 52 mental factors which are associated here, right, with those consciousness aggregate, the whole thing. And Te Dhammehi, those states becomes the first those states, right, the 52 mental factors. So the second Yedhamma becomes the consciousness aggregate itself, right? So those states, they are associated with 3 mental aggregates, right? Tihi Kandehi, the other 3 mental aggregates, because the Vijnana Kanda itself, we get the answer here. Then in terms of the bases and elements, it is not associated with it is not associated with the mind base or the consciousness elements itself, right? Because the state of inquiry is the Vijnana Kanda. But the partial association is applicable here. So what is this partial association? For the ideation element and the ideation base, right? So for Vijnana Kanda, you find the answer here, 52. It is partially associated with ideation element and ideation base with those 52 mental factors. Right, so we quickly go through the Pali. So we see here, right? So Vijnana Khandena Yedhamma Sampayutta. So it's Tehi Dhamme Yedhamma Sampayutta, Te Dhamma Tihi Kandehi Sampayutta. And it says Eke Nayatanene Ekaya Dhatuya Kehichi Sampayutta. It is partially associated with one aggregate, one base and one element. Yes.
OK， 好，那么这里的话，我们看一下第2个探究法呢是Vijnana Khandha，是时运。对于时运而言呢，首先有哪些法是与它相应的呢？就是52种的心所。那对于52种心所而言，有哪些法是与它相应的呢？那就回到了时运本身。对于时运而言，又有哪些的运处界是与它相应的呢？那对于时运而言，有3种的运，就是3种的名运是与它相应的。那对于处而言，没有任何的一种单独的处与它相应，但是呢，有部分的相应呢，就是在法处和法界之中的52种心所呢，是与它能够相应的。
Right. Okay. So now we move into the third group, Chakku Vijnana Dhatuya, which is the eye consciousness element. So the eye consciousness element, it is associated with primary mental factors, right? The universal ones, Sabbha Chitta Sadharana mental factors, right? So we have these 7 mental factors here. Those 7 mental factors here. So for Tehi Dhammehi Yedhamma Sampayutta, again we get the eye consciousness element itself, right? So here, find it here. Those states, second B states, it's the eye consciousness element. And then eye consciousness element. So then we have the question on the association. So those dhammas are associated with the remaining mental aggregates, 3 mental aggregates, right? Because it's the conscious part of the consciousness, right? And then for the association on the bases and elements, it's not applicable. But in terms of the partial association, it's applicable for Dhammayatana and Dhamma Dhatu. Right? So for Dhammayatana and Dhamma Dhatu, the partial association is applicable for the seven universal mental factors. Right? So if we quickly go through the Pali here.
It's 321
And 21, right? Samudaya Satchain, right? Oh, here in the 320 we find it. Chakku Viññāna Dhātuya. This one, right? So it says Tihi Kandehi Sampayutta Ekena Ayatanena Ekaya Dhātuya Keji Sampayutta. So it's associated with three aggregates. It's partially associated with one base and one element. Yes, also.
Oh yeah, but so here the answer is the same like Vijnana Khanda, so they put together.
Put together, of course. Put together. The difference is only for this part, the partial association.
Okay.
The Sarupatha for the partial association is different. For the Vijnana Khanda, we get the 52 mental factors. But for the Chakku Viññāna Dhātuya, it's the 7 primary mental factors, right? The universal mental factors.
Yes, because one type is all Vijnana, another type is maybe single Vijnana.
Yes.
好，那么这里呢，对于第三个探究法是眼识界。眼识界呢就是眼识，在眼识心识刹那之中有哪些法是与它相应的呢？就是七遍一切心所。那对于七遍一切心所而言，有哪些法是与它相应的呢？那就是回归到眼识本身。对于眼识而言，又有哪些的运处界是与眼识相应的呢？那首先呢，有3种的运，就是受想行运是与眼识相应的。那处和界呢，并没有任何的单独一种处或界能够完整的与眼识相应。那部分的相应呢，则是有一种的处和一种的界是部分与眼识相应的，就是法处和法界之中的心所。哪些心所呢？眼识心识刹那里面的七遍一切心所，这些呢作为部分的法界和法处，它们与眼识相应。
Okay. We move to the next group, which is number 4. The fourth one, it's the Samudaya Satchena, the origin truth. We know the Sarupatha for the Samudaya Satchena is the Lobha Chetasika, the greed mental factor. So the Dhammas which are associated with the Lobha Chetasika are the greed rooted 8 consciousness, and also the mental factors, 22 mental factors excluding greed. Right? So in these 8 consciousness rooted in greed, there are 22 mental factors. From that we have to deduct the greed. Right? So that's why we get the answer here as 21. So then we have the first those states. We have the answer here. Then we have Te Dhamme Hiya Dhamma Sampayutta. We get the second these states. Right? So the second these states are here. We find it here. Right? So it becomes the state of inquiry itself, which is the origin truth. So then finally we get the answer. The answer here for the association. So it is associated with 3 aggregates, right? So what are those 3 aggregates? Vedana, Sanya, and Vijnana. Those are the 3 aggregates which are associated here. For the mind, in terms of the bases, we have the mind base, and for the elements we have the mind consciousness element, right? Because the greed, because the Samudaya Satcha, the greed rooted consciousness, they are applicable for the mind consciousness element only. And for the partial association, now we have to note here it's applicable for 3 three classifications, right? For the Sankhara Khandha, Dhammayatana, and Dhamma Dhatu, right? So we know for the for here the partial association for the Khandha and Ayatana, it is easy, straightforward, right? This part is easy, straightforward, because those 21 mental factors, they are partially associated. But here, for the mental formation aggregates, we'll do a small working to get this answer, right? So now from this 21 mental factors, right? 21, we have to deduct the one for the feeling aggregate, right? One for the feeling aggregate, and we have to deduct one for the perception aggregate for the Sanya Khandha. Right? So the other mental factors are applicable here. Right? So it becomes 19, right? So the partial association for the Sankhara Khandha becomes 19 mental factors, right? But for the Dhammayatana and Dhammadhatu, ideation element, ideation base and ideation element, there are 21 mental factors applicable. Right? So there's a slight difference here that you need to know. Yes.
好，下一个探究法呢是 Samudaya Saja 极地。极地呢就是贪心所。那对于贪心所而言，有哪些是它的相应法呢？即是贪心所能够存在的8种类型的贪心和其相应的21种心所，这是整体而言。那对于8种的贪心和21种相应心所，它们的相应法呢就是贪心所本身。对于贪心所而言，那么有哪些法是与它相应的呢？有3种的蕴、1种的处和1种的戒。3种的蕴呢，就是受蕴、想蕴和识蕴；1种的处呢，就是意处；1种的戒呢，就是意识戒。那部分相应的法呢，就是有一些法呢，它们部分呢是与贪心所相应。蕴而言的话呢，有1种的蕴，就是行蕴。那行蕴里面呢，需要呢去考虑这里的21种的相应心所里面呢，它并不是全部的都包含在行蕴之中。那行蕴要去除受和想呢，剩下的19种的心所呢，是作为贪心所的相应法。所以呢，是行蕴之中的19种心所是可以与贪心所相应。再有的话呢是1种的处和1种的戒，处和戒里面的法处和法戒之中的21种心所呢，是与贪心所相应的。
Right. So from that, we'll in the class tonight, this evening. So if you have any questions, you all can ask me now.
那到现在为止呢，今天晚上所讲的内容，大家有任何的问题吗？
Yes, there's one question.
Good evening, Bhante, Thiruvan, Saranai. Thank you very much, Bhante, for the class. My question is, may I know, because eventually we get back the state of inquiry, right? Because state of inquiry, those states associated with them, and then the states associated with this state. So we get back the state of inquiry. So may I know what is the significance, or is there any reason or anything Bhante can think of to go through this step to get back the state of inquiry?
In the commentary, it does not explain anything, like any particular reason on why the structure of the question, the answer is the same. I mean, on your question, I think it may be kind of a way to reflect on Dhammas. Most probably, like now, say Say for example, now if we remove this part, say the first part of the question, no, I mean we can remove the first part and the second part. Okay, I'll share with the screen. Right, so we can remove this part of the question, part 1, and also part 2. And if you remove these two parts, what will be the answer? I mean, I mean, it's similar to method number 6, right? Vedana kandena. Just forget the vedana kandena, right? We can say vedana kando, katihi kandehi, katihayatane, katihi dhatuhi sampayutta, like that. Okay, remove this one also. The same, right? So nothing's new.
Yes, Bhante.
Yeah. So I think it's most probably a way to reflect on dhammas, right? To show that, if one dhamma becomes sampayutta with another dhamma, so whatever the dhammas which it becomes associated, the sampayutta, for that dhamma is the dhamma, the dhamma which we are considering itself. That kind of a thing we can see. That relationship can be shown here. I also don't know have the perfect answer for this. Right? So I think in that way, yes.
I see. Thank you very much, Bhante. So by doing this, we can only consider those states which sampayutta can apply.
Yes, of course. Okay. No questions, right? Okay.
Vandami Bhante.
Yes. Okay, good.
Bhante, may I just guess, Bhante, why I was just thinking also why they have these 2 steps, because I thinking if there's no the 2 steps in the middle, then that means that they just directly from the states of inquiry asking what would be the sampayutta by khanda, ayatana, and dhatu. In this case, we would have for this method we would still have 371 states of inquiry, because when there is no sampayutta, we just get the answer as nati. So then, but by asking first one sampayutta and then another sampayutta, then in that case, only those states which have sampayutta states will be included as states of inquiry. That's why we only get 120 states of inquiry for this method. I'm just guessing maybe this is just to filter out only those states which have sampayutta states to the 120. Is that possible, Bhante?
Yes, that answer also can be considered, of course. Yeah, so it's applicable for the same way we can apply it for the other methods also. Say we have in the 10th method, the next method we are going to discuss, it's going to be vipayuttena vipayutta. For that also we can think in that way, in the way that you are suggesting also. So we can consider that as an answer also. There's nothing wrong with that. It's correct.
Thank you very much, Bhante. I think also, Bhante, even earlier there is another method we have learned before also have the same situation where it goes back to the same one. I think method
7th one is it? Yeah, but yeah.
Oh, the method number 4, I think.
I mean, your answer is, it's correct. But again, we have to think there are connected methods. Now, can you remember now? I told here, right? I told here, right? Now we are doing the 9th method. Here we see the association, right? And here we see for the method number 12, we have the classification, right? Classified. So, yeah, I think you're correct. It's connected, right? I mean, the Yedhamma, the second Yedhamma is the same for the both methods. So, if it was okay, well, the point what I want to bring, especially if the sole reason was to filter out the dhammas which only have the association, the sampayutta only, then there won't be any need for the method number 12, right? Did you get my point?
But the method number 12 is to classify the sampayutta dhamma. So it would still be okay to do that, okay?
Yes, it's to do that. I mean, what the thought which I came into my mind at right now is that if the only reason for the ninth method is to filter out the dhammas which have the association, if it was the sole reason, if it was the only reason for that, then we don't need the method number 12, which explain on the classification too. Right? We get the same Yedhamma for both methods, and we have for the 12th method we have the classification. For the ninth we have the association.
Yes, Pandit. That's why when I check method 12, there is no additional Yedhamma. So method 12, the Pali only has one Yedhamma and straight away do the classification. So because the one Yedhamma would already filter out those with sampayutta. But in this case, only in method 9, there is a double Yedhamma to get back to the stage of inquiry. But method 12, there is only one Yedhamma.
Okay, let me recheck.
I think Brother Gigi, he's correct, and also his explanation makes sense.
Yeah, it's correct. It's correct. Yeah. So that we can take it now also.
So maybe Gigi can try to explain into Chinese first.
Okay, good.
Okay, Bante. Maybe sorry, Bante, just before that. Bante, I noticed like method 4, which we have done before, also maybe it's a similar reason. Method 4, we had Sangahitena, Sangahita. Also, it has gone through this just to identify states that can be Sangahita, even though eventually it comes back to states of inquiry.
Sorry, what is the question?
Bante, for method 4, which Bante has taught before, is Sangahitena, Sangahita. So we also had this case where the states of inquiry, we find the Sangahita Dhamma. Then we find the Sangahita Dhamma, do the Sangahita Dhamma. Therefore, we go back to the original states of inquiry before we look at the classification into Khanda, Ayatana, and Dhatu. So in that case also, it is similar to method 9, where eventually the...
I'm sorry, I think cannot hear.
Sorry, Bante, is it okay?
Yeah, my connection is quite, it's unstable. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, Bante, I was just thinking that is it possible that therefore for method 4, which we have studied before, Sangahitena, Sangahita, we have the same similar situation with this Sampayutena, Sampayutta. where we have the stage of inquiry, we find the Sanghahita Dhamma, then we find the Sanghahita Dhamma do the earlier Sanghahita Dhamma. Therefore, we will get back to the stage of inquiry before we do the classification, which is very similar to what we have now in method 9. So in both cases, probably the reason is to filter out those Dhamma that can have Sanghahita, and in this case, the Dhamma that can have Sampayita. Otherwise, we would have all 371 states of inquiry included in method 9.
Yes, of course. I can say it in that way. Yes, you are correct.
Okay, thank you very much, Bhante. Bhante, I try to translate.
Okay, yes, please.
对不起，Bhante弟子尝试翻译，如果不对，请Bhante您帮忙指正。
没有问题，这刚刚这个角度非常正确，跟大家分享一下。
好的，谢谢Bhante。刚才因为刚才首先是庆玉贤有问这个问题，就是说我们在这第9法的时候呢，就是经过了，首先有这个探究法去找它的相应法之后呢，再针对相应法又再找相应法，所以最后呢，我们必然是回到本来的这个探究法。那既然都是会回到本来探究法，为什么就不直接跳过这2个步骤，就直接用探究法来找与它相应的是多少个运处界而为什么要经过这个过程呢？所以弟子的猜想呢，就是因为呢，如果没有经过这2个步骤，直接说就是以探究法来说，与探究法的相应多少运处界的话呢，那我们这样的情况呢，就所有371种有可能的探究法呢都会出现，因为如果即使是那些没有相应法的探究法呢，我们也可以找到答案，答案就是 nati， 就是没有相应法。那所以变成所有371法呢，都会出现在这一个第9法里面。可是现在第9法要找的就是要把它过滤，把371种所有的探究法中呢过滤出来呢，只是要找那些有相应法的这些探究法。所以因此呢，我们看到这个呢就只有120种这个探究法呢是有这样的情况，是符合这个有相应法的条件的。所以呢，通过这2个步骤呢。我们就把那些所有371种探究法的可能性里面过滤出来，只有这120种是有可能是有这个相应法的，才会列在这个第9法里面。这个是弟子的猜测。那同样的呢，因为这边是以相应而相应，就是同样的之前呢老师教导我们学习过的第4法，就是Sanghahita，那Sanghahita也是。以相摄而相摄的这个情况呢，也是同样的探究法呢与探究法相摄的法，然后呢又与这个相摄法呢再相摄的法最终呢都必然回到原本的探究法，然后才来做它的那个归纳于运处界这样。所以同样的也是应该呢，第4法跟第9法呢可能都是同样的情况，就是为了在这所有371种法里面呢，要过滤出来那些有这个相摄法的这样的这些探究法来做这个探究而已。Bhante这样可以吗？还是Bhante您可以
OK， sadhu。
We share the merits, right?
OK, Bhante, sadhu.
Okay, so we share the merits which we accumulated during last 1.5 hours by teaching, learning, and reflecting the supreme words of Buddha. So with this kusala karma, may it be a supportive factor for us to attain Nibbana. May this kusala karma be a supportive factor for our teachers, our Dhamma friends, and our donors to attain Nibbana. And also, may this kusala karma be a supportive factor for all the beings in this world and the other worlds to attain Nibbana. May this kusala karma be a supportive factor for all the beings. May all the beings in this world and the other worlds be well, happy, healthy, and peaceful. with these wishes, with this having these thoughts in our mind, we'll share the merits. Yang patang kusalang tassa anubhavena panino sabbe saddhamma rajassa nyatva dhammang sukhavahang papunantu visuddhaya sukhaya patipattiya asoka manupayasang nibbana sukha muttamang chirang titthatu saddhammo dhamme hontu sagarava sabbepi satta kalena samma devo pavassatu yatharakkensu purana surajano tathevimang raja rakhatu dhammena attanova pajang pajang imaya dhammanu dhamma patipattiya buddhang pujemi imaya dhammanu dhamma patipattiya dhammang pujemi imaya dhammanu dhamma patipattiya sanghang pujemi addhai maya patipattiya jati jara vyadhi maranam ha parimuccissami idang me punyang asavakkaya vahang hotu idang me punyang nibbanassa paccayo hotu mama punya bhagang sabba sattanang bhajemi te sabbe me samang punya bhagang labantu buddha sasanang chirang titthatu buddha sasanang chirang titthatu buddha sasanang chirang titthatu sadhu sadhu sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for Bante's teaching. Sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Bante.
Sadhu.